He held the dying alien princess. His touch made her wounds close and heal. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The frigid air of an alien battlefield carried the scent of ozone and blood. Tyler Grant, a human medic assigned to the joint military operation, never expected to find himself cradling royalty as her life ebbed away beneath a violet sky. He held the dying alien princess. His touch made her wounds close and heal. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The frigid air of an alien battlefield carried the scent of ozone and blood. Tyler Grant, a human medic assigned to the joint military operation, never expected to find himself cradling royalty as her life ebbed away beneath a violet sky. 3 standard Earth years earlier, humanity had made first contact with the Linerans, a humanoid species with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer with bioluminescence. Their civilization was ancient and advanced, yet surprisingly compatible with Earth's biosphere. The diplomatic relations had been cautious but promising, until the Mechari Dominion, a predatory empire from the outer reaches, decided that both civilizations represented a threat to their expansion. Tyler had volunteered for the Joint Defense Force, not out of heroism but practicality. With his medical background and a failed relationship behind him, the opportunity to serve off-world offered escape and purpose. At 32, he was older than most recruits, but his skills were valuable, and the Lineran commanders had specifically requested human medical personnel after discovering a curious compatibility between human and Lineran biology. What nobody could have predicted was how compatible they truly were. The battle that day had been brutal. The Mechari had ambushed a diplomatic convoy traveling between military outposts. Their objective became clear when they focused their attack on the royal transport. Princess Alara, daughter of the Lineran High Sovereign and a key diplomat in the Human-Lineran Alliance, was traveling to establish a new joint command center. Tyler had been stationed at a forward medical post when the distress calls came through. The convoy's guards were overwhelmed, and the princess's security detail requested immediate medical assistance. Their tone made it clear the situation was dire. By the time Tyler's medical team arrived, the Mechari had retreated, leaving destruction in their wake. The royal transport lay in ruins, its elegant design now a tangle of twisted metal and shattered crystal. Bodies of Lineran guards were scattered across the purple grass of the plain, their normally luminescent skin dimmed in death. "Check for survivors," ordered Commander Valen, the human officer in charge of the medical team. "Priority on the royal transport." Tyler moved quickly among the wreckage, his medical scanner detecting only faint life signs. Most of the Linerans were already beyond help, their bodies cooling rapidly in the chill air of the planet's approaching dusk. He was about to report back when his scanner picked up a weak signal from beneath a section of collapsed hull plating. "I've got something here," he called out, dropping to his knees and beginning to clear away debris. 2 other human medics rushed to help him, and together they lifted the twisted metal. Beneath it lay Princess Alara, her ceremonial armor crushed and her body broken. Her skin, normally a shimmering pale blue with patterns of light that flowed like rivers across her form, now flickered weakly, the glow fading with each labored breath. Tyler had seen the princess once before, during a formal ceremony to commemorate the alliance. Then, she had been regal and imposing, her luminescence brightening the entire chamber. Now, she looked small and vulnerable, her alien features contorted in pain. "It's the princess," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "She's critical." Commander Valen appeared at his side, face grim. "The medevac is inbound, but it's 12 minutes out. Do what you can." Tyler nodded, already assessing the injuries. Multiple lacerations, crushed ribs, internal bleeding. The scanner's readings were a litany of fatal wounds. By human or Lineran standards, she shouldn't even be alive. "I need a stabilization field," he called to his team, "and bring the emergency Lineran medical kit." As they rushed to gather supplies, Tyler carefully removed the shattered pieces of her armor to better access her wounds. The princess's eyes fluttered open at his touch, revealing irises that swirled with the same bioluminescence as her skin. "Human," she whispered, her voice barely audible. You should leave me. The Mechary will return. Not happening, Your Highness, Tyler replied, administering a leaner pain suppressant. We're getting you out of here. Her luminescent eyes fixed on him with surprising clarity. You don't understand. I am beyond your medicine. This was an assassination. They used toxin-tipped weapons. Tyler's scanner confirmed her words a moment later, detecting an unknown compound spreading through her bloodstream. The Leanerin medical database in his device flashed urgent warnings. The toxin was designed specifically to attack Leanerin physiology, accelerating tissue breakdown and preventing natural healing. The team is setting up a perimeter, Tyler said, trying to sound confident as he applied pressure to a particularly severe wound on her abdomen. The medevac will be here soon. We just need to keep you stable. The princess's luminescence dimmed further, her skin growing darker. According to the scanner, her life signs were deteriorating rapidly. The toxin was working faster than expected, and none of the standard Leanerin antidotes in their kit would counter it. My father, she whispered. Tell him. The Mechary emissary betrayed us. They know about the Veil Project. Tyler didn't know what the Veil Project was, but he nodded, focusing on stabilizing her most serious wounds. You can tell him yourself when we get you to the medical center. A faint smile crossed her alien features. You humans, always so stubbornly optimistic. As Tyler worked, he became increasingly desperate. Nothing in their medical kits seemed effective against the toxin, and the princess's life signs continued to fade. Her skin, which should have been radiating light, was now barely glowing at all, taking on a grayish hue. In a last desperate measure, Tyler began direct manual treatment, applying regenerative gel to her wounds with his bare hands. A violation of protocol when dealing with alien biology, but he was out of options. As his fingers made contact with her skin, something unexpected happened. Where his skin touched hers, the grayness receded slightly. The princess gasped, her eyes widening. What did you do? She asked, her voice slightly stronger. Tyler stared in confusion. I just applied the standard regenerative compound. No, she said. There's something different. Acting on instinct, Tyler placed his palm directly over the worst of her wounds, a deep gash across her abdomen. To his astonishment, the edges of the wound began to knit together beneath his touch. The princess's skin brightened, the luminescence returning to the area around his hand. Commander, Tyler called, his voice tight with disbelief. Something's happening here. Commander Valen hurried over, her expression changing from urgent to shocked as she witnessed the phenomenon. What are you doing, Grant? I don't know, Tyler admitted. But it's working. He moved his hands to another wound, and again, the tissue began to regenerate beneath his touch. It wasn't instantaneous. The process was slow, but undeniable. Somehow, contact with his skin was counteracting the toxin and accelerating the princess's natural healing abilities. It's impossible, muttered one of the other medics, watching in awe. The Linerans have mentioned biological compatibility, Valen said slowly. But nothing like this. The princess's eyes were fixed on Tyler, luminescent swirls moving faster within her irises. The prophecy, she whispered. The healers from beyond the void. Tyler ignored the cryptic comment, focusing instead on methodically touching each of her wounds. With each contact, her luminescence grew stronger, spreading outward from his fingers like ripples in water. The medevac's 3 minutes out, reported another medic. Commander Valen nodded, then turned to Tyler. Whatever you're doing, keep it up until we get her to the medical center. I need to report this. As Valen stepped away to communicate with headquarters, Tyler continued his work. The princess's breathing had steadied, and the scanner showed her life signs stabilizing, though they were still dangerously weak. What's your name, human? The princess asked, her voice clearer now. Tyler Grant, he replied, moving his hands to a wound on her shoulder. I'm a field medic with the Joint Defense Force. Tyler Grant, she repeated, the alien pronunciation giving his name a musical quality. My people have stories of beings from another world whose touch brings life. We thought they were myths. I'm just using standard medical procedures, Tyler said, though he knew that wasn't true. There was nothing standard about what was happening. The regenerative compounds must be reacting with something in my skin chemistry. The princess's expression suggested she didn't believe his explanation any more than he did. The Mechari know of the prophecy too. That's why they fear our alliance. They believe if humans and Linerans truly unite, their dominion will fall. Before Tyler could respond, the distinctive hum of the medevac transport filled the air. The sleek vehicle, a hybrid of human and Lineran technology, descended rapidly, kicking up swirls of purple grass pollen. "Transport's here," Tyler said. "We're getting you to the central medical facility. They'll have better equipment to deal with the toxin." As the medical team prepared to move the princess, Tyler started to withdraw his hands, but she gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't let go," she said, urgency in her voice. "The healing stops when you break contact." Commander Valen, returning from her communication, nodded to Tyler. "You'll accompany the princess in the transport. I've informed headquarters of the situation. They're very interested in your ability." Tyler didn't like the sound of that, but he had no choice. The princess's condition, while improved, was still critical, and if breaking physical contact would reverse the healing progress, he couldn't risk it. The team carefully transferred Princess Alera to a stretcher, Tyler maintaining contact with her the entire time. As they loaded her into the medevac, he positioned himself beside her, one hand resting on her arm. "This is not coincidence, Tyler Grant," the princess said quietly as the transport lifted off. "Your presence on this battlefield today was ordained by forces beyond either of our understandings." Tyler, trained in science and medicine, wanted to dismiss her words as the ramblings of someone in shock. Yet he couldn't deny the evidence before him. Somehow, his touch was healing wounds that should have been fatal, counteracting a toxin specifically designed to kill Linerans. "Get some rest, Your Highness," he said. "We'll figure this out when we reach the medical center." As the transport sped toward the joint military base that housed the advanced medical facility, Tyler found himself thrust into a situation he couldn't have imagined when he'd volunteered for off-world service. He was no longer just a medic treating allies. He had become something else entirely, a healer in a way that defied scientific explanation and possibly, according to the princess, the fulfillment of an alien prophecy. The implications made him uneasy. If his touch could heal Linerans, what did that mean for human-Lineran relations? And more urgently, what would the Mechari do when they discovered their assassination attempt had failed? As the princess drifted into unconsciousness, her hand still gripping his, Tyler watched the alien landscape blur beneath the transport. Whatever was happening, whatever it meant, one thing was certain. His life had irrevocably changed the moment he touched the dying alien princess. The medevac transport landed on the rooftop pad of the joint medical facility with a gentle thud. Unlike the makeshift field hospitals Tyler was accustomed to, this structure was a marvel of combined human and Lineran architecture. Sleek crystalline towers merged with reinforced titanium, creating a structure both beautiful and functional. As the doors slid open, a team of medical personnel rushed forward, a mix of human doctors and Lineran healers. Their expressions shifted from professional urgency to confusion when they saw Tyler still maintaining physical contact with the princess. "Status report," demanded Dr. Kira Chun, the facility's human medical director. "Princess Alera has sustained multiple critical injuries and was exposed to an unknown Mechari toxin," reported one of the medevac crew. Field Medic Grant discovered that direct physical contact appears to neutralize the toxin and promote healing. Dr. Chin's skeptical gaze moved from the report on her tablet to Tyler. "That's not possible." "I thought the same thing," Tyler responded. "But I've maintained contact for the past 20 minutes, and her condition has stabilized. When I tried to break contact briefly during transport, her vital signs immediately began to deteriorate." The Lineran chief healer, Soren, a tall figure whose skin glowed with intricate patterns of green and blue luminescence, stepped forward. Unlike the younger Linerans, his features were deeply lined, giving his luminescent face a weathered appearance. "The ancestral texts speak of this," he said, his voice resonant and deep. "The touch of renewal. We believed it to be symbolic, not literal. Let's focus on established medical science before we jump to ancient texts," Dr. Chun said firmly. "We need to get the princess into surgery immediately." As they wheeled Princess Alera into the facility, Tyler awkwardly keeping pace while maintaining contact with her arm. He noticed the stares from both human and Lenarin personnel. Word was spreading quickly. The medical team transferred the princess onto a specialized treatment platform in the main surgical suite. The chamber was a blend of familiar human medical technology and the more exotic Lenarin healing instruments, which utilized their species' natural affinity for bioluminescent energy. Medic Grant, you'll need to step back now, Dr. Chen said, as the team prepared for surgery. With respect, Doctor, I can't do that, Tyler replied. When I break contact, her condition deteriorates rapidly. Chief Healer Soren intervened. If what we're observing is truly the touch of renewal, then Medic Grant must remain in physical contact throughout the procedure. Dr. Chen looked displeased but nodded curtly. Fine, but you'll need to be sterilized and gowned like the rest of the surgical team. What followed was an awkward process of Tyler being sterilized and dressed in surgical attire while maintaining at least one hand on the princess's arm at all times. Once properly prepared, he positioned himself at the head of the treatment platform, where he could keep a hand on the princess's shoulder without interfering with the surgical team's work. As the procedure began, the medical monitors displayed real-time data on the princess's condition. The readings confirmed what Tyler had observed in the field. Wherever his skin made contact with hers, the toxin's effects were neutralized, and the tissue showed accelerated healing. This defies everything we know about xenobiology, muttered Dr. Chun, watching as a deep laceration began to close under Tyler's touch. Not everything, countered Chief Healer Soren. The compatibility between human and Lenarin biology has been noted since first contact. This is merely an unexpected extension of that compatibility. Dr. Chun frowned. Compatibility is one thing. This level of cellular regeneration triggered by simple touch is something else entirely. As the surgery progressed, Tyler could feel a strange warmth spreading through his hand and up his arm. It wasn't painful, but it was distinctly unusual, a tingling sensation, as if a mild electric current were passing between the princess and himself. The princess's eyes suddenly opened, luminescent swirls moving rapidly within her irises. The veil thins, she whispered, her gaze fixing on Tyler. They can see you now. She's regaining consciousness, Dr. Chen said, checking the monitors. Administer additional sedation. No. Chief Healer Soren countermanded. The touch of renewal works in harmony with consciousness. Sedation may interfere. The two medical directors exchanged tense glances, the friction between different medical philosophies evident. Finally, Dr. Chen nodded reluctantly. Monitor her pain levels closely. If she shows signs of distress, we reconsider sedation. Princess Alara's gaze remained locked on Tyler. The Mechari will come for you now, she said, her voice surprisingly clear. You've revealed yourself too soon. Save your strength, Your Highness, Tyler said, uncomfortable with both her intense stare and her ominous words. The team is repairing your injuries. You don't understand what you are, she continued, undeterred. What we are together. The Mechari have feared this union for generations. Chief Healer Soren leaned closer. Princess, what did you see beyond the veil? Shadows gathering, she replied cryptically. The Dominion prepares a greater weapon. They know now that one human has the touch. They will fear there are more. Dr. Chen shot an annoyed look at Soren. This is a medical procedure, not a mystical consultation. Princess, please try to rest while we complete your treatment. The princess fell silent, but her eyes remained fixed on Tyler, the luminescent patterns swirling hypnotically. Tyler found it increasingly difficult to look away, as if her gaze was pulling him into those spiraling lights. As the surgical team worked, Tyler became aware of a strange phenomenon. The longer he maintained contact with the princess, the more he could sense her, not just physically, but in some indefinable way. He began to perceive flickers of emotion that weren't his own: pain, fear, determination, and something else, a sense of recognition, as if she had been waiting for him specifically. Her tissue regeneration has accelerated beyond anything we've recorded, reported one of the Lenarin healers, breaking Tyler's trance-like state. The toxin is being neutralized at an exponential rate. Dr. Chin examined the data with a frown. Medic Grant, are you experiencing any adverse effects? Dizziness, nausea, fatigue? Tyler considered the question. Beyond the strange warmth and tingling in his arm, and the even stranger sense of emotional connection, he felt physically normal. No adverse effects, doctor. Just a warming sensation where we're in contact. Chief Healer Soren studied Tyler with intense interest. The texts speak of a symbiotic exchange, not a one-way transfer. You are giving something, but you are also receiving. The implication made Tyler uneasy. I don't feel like I'm receiving anything. The effects may not be immediately apparent, Soren replied. The touch of renewal changes both parties, though in different ways. Before Tyler could ask what that meant, the facility's alarm system activated, bathing the surgical suite in pulsing red light. Attention, all personnel, announced a calm but urgent voice over the facility's communication system. Multiple unidentified vessels have entered orbit. Defense systems activated. All non-essential personnel proceed to secure areas. Dr. Chen looked up sharply. Continue the procedure. We're nearly finished with the critical repairs. It's them, Princess Alara said, her voice suddenly stronger. The Mechari have come for us both. They cannot allow the renewal to begin. Tyler felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cool air of the surgical suite. Why would they come for me? Because you're the first, she replied. The first human to demonstrate the touch. They've monitored our alliance, waiting for signs that the prophecy might be true. Now they have confirmation. The facility shuddered slightly as distant explosions reverberated through the structure. We need to move the princess to a secure location, Dr. Chen decided, glancing at the monitors. Her condition is stable enough for transport. Chief Healer Soren nodded in agreement. The inner chambers were designed as a sanctuary in case of attack. As the team prepared to move Princess Alara, Tyler maintained his contact, now acutely aware that he had somehow become central to a conflict he barely understood. The princess had called him the first, suggesting there might be others like him, humans capable of this inexplicable healing touch. Tyler, the princess said softly as they transferred her to a transport gurney. What happens in the next hours will change the course of both our civilizations. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Tyler, who had volunteered as a medic to escape his own personal failures back on Earth, felt wholly unprepared for any responsibility beyond treating the wounded. Yet something about the princess's words resonated with him, as if awakening a part of himself he hadn't known existed. I'm just doing my job, Your Highness, he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Keeping you alive is my only priority right now. Her luminescent eyes seemed to see through his deflection. Your touch has already done more than save one life. It has confirmed what the Mechari feared most. Our species are not merely compatible, they are complementary. Together, we are more than the sum of our parts. As they rushed through the corridors toward the facility's secure inner chambers, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled into something far larger than himself, a cosmic convergence that had been set in motion long before his birth. The dying alien princess he had found on the battlefield was now looking at him not just as her healer, but as the harbinger of a new era. And somewhere above them, the Mechari Dominion was bringing its full might to bear, determined to end that era before it could truly begin. The inner sanctuary of the medical facility was a stark contrast to the clinical environment of the surgical suite. Here, crystalline structures dominated the architecture, creating a space that felt both ancient and advanced. Bioluminescent patterns flowed through the crystal walls, responding to the presence of the Linerans who entered. Security personnel, both human and Lineran, had established a defensive perimeter around the sanctuary. The princess was moved to a recovery platform at the center of the chamber, the crystalline surface adjusting to comfortably support her healing body. Tyler, still maintaining physical contact with Princess Alara, felt increasingly out of place. He was a field medic, trained to stabilize patients until they could reach proper medical facilities. Now that the princess was receiving care from the facility's top specialists, his continued presence seemed unnecessary, except for the unexplained healing effect of his touch. The Mechari forces have breached the outer defense perimeter, reported a human security officer, Lieutenant Reese. They're deploying ground troops with a clear objective of reaching the medical facility. High Commander Valen, who had arrived shortly after the princess was brought to the sanctuary, turned to Chief Healer Soren. Is there another way to evacuate if necessary? Sora nodded. There is a direct transport pad to the royal compound, but it requires authorization from a member of the sovereign family. All eyes turned to Princess Alara, who was now sitting upright on the recovery platform, Tyler's hand still resting on her arm. Her condition had improved dramatically over the past hour. The wounds that should have been fatal were nearly healed, and her luminescence had returned to almost full brightness. I can authorize the transport, she said, but not yet. We must wait for my father. With respect, Your Highness, Valen argued. The High Sovereign's security detail would never allow him to enter an active combat zone, even for you. A slight smile curved the princess's lips. You underestimate my father's devotion, both to me and to the Alliance. As if on cue, the crystalline walls pulsed with a distinctive pattern, and a section of the chamber reconfigured itself, opening to reveal a hidden entrance. Through it strode a tall, imposing Linaran male, his skin glowing with such intensity that the humans in the room instinctively squinted against the brightness. High Sovereign Talon of the Linaran Celestial Court had arrived, accompanied by an elite guard of both Linaran and human soldiers. His resemblance to his daughter was evident, though his features were sharper, more angular, and his luminescent patterns more complex, denoting his advanced age and royal status. Father, Princess Alara acknowledged, inclining her head in a formal gesture. The High Sovereign's gaze swept the room, pausing briefly on each face before settling on his daughter and Tyler, specifically on the point where they maintained physical contact. So it is true, he said, his resonant voice filling the chamber. The touch of renewal has manifested. Tyler started to withdraw his hand, feeling uncomfortably conspicuous under the Sovereign's intense scrutiny, but Princess Alara quickly covered his hand with her own. Not yet, she said quietly. The healing is still in progress. High Sovereign Talon approached them, his luminescence dimming slightly to a more comfortable level for human eyes. He studied Tyler with unconcealed interest. You are the human medic who found my daughter on the battlefield, he stated rather than asked. Yes, Your Majesty, Tyler replied, unsure of the proper protocol. Tyler Grant, Field Medic, Joint Defense Force. And you had no prior knowledge of your ability? None, Your Majesty. I was just trying to stabilize the princess until the medevac arrived. The High Sovereign nodded, as if confirming something he had already suspected. The ancestral texts speak of such abilities emerging in times of greatest need, when the bearer has no knowledge of their potential. Commander Valen stepped forward. Your Majesty, the Mechari forces are advancing rapidly. We need to evacuate you and the princess immediately. The Mechari are not here simply to finish their assassination attempt, the High Sovereign replied. They have come for Medic Grant as well. They know what his ability represents. Tyler felt a surge of frustration. I don't understand. What does my touch actually mean? Why would the Mechari care about one human medic? Princess Alara exchanged a glance with her father, who nodded, giving her silent permission to explain. The touch of renewal is more than a healing ability, she began. It is a manifestation of the fundamental compatibility between our species. According to our oldest records, left by the ancestors who seeded both our worlds, humans and Linarans were designed to complement each other. Designed? Tyler interrupted. By whom? We call them the precursors, the High Sovereign answered. They traveled the stars long before either of our civilizations arose. They seeded compatible life on multiple worlds, creating species that could one day reunite and combine their strengths. Dr. Chun, who had been monitoring the princess's condition, couldn't contain her scientific skepticism. You're suggesting intelligent design on an interstellar scale? That's hard to believe, the High Sovereign finished for her. Yet the evidence stands before you. Human and Linaran physiology, despite evolving on different planets, shows remarkable compatibility, culminating in abilities like the touch of renewal, which neither species can manifest alone. The Mechari know of this ancient design, Princess Alara continued. Their ancestors were also seeded by the precursors, but they evolved along a different path, one of conquest rather than cooperation. They fear what humans and Linarans might become if fully reunited as the precursors intended. Tyler struggled to process the implications. So my ability to heal you isn't some random biological quirk? It's intentional, part of some ancient alien plan. Not random at all, the High Sovereign confirmed. Though you are the first human in our recorded history to manifest the ability, the ancestral texts prophesied that the touch would emerge when our species faced extinction. It is a defensive mechanism, encoded in our complementary DNA, activated by dire need. A distant explosion shook the chamber, sending fine crystalline dust drifting down from the ceiling. "We are out of time for history lessons," Commander Valen insisted. "The Mechari forces will breach the facility soon." The High Sovereign nodded. "Prepare the royal transport. We must take both my daughter and Medic Grant to the ancestral sanctuary." Tyler looked between the royal Linerans and his human commanders, feeling torn. "Sir, I'm a member of the Joint Defense Force. My duty is to stay with my unit." Commander Valen's expression softened slightly. "In this case, Grant, your duty to the Alliance is best served by going with the High Sovereign. Whatever this ability of yours means, it's clearly valuable enough that the Mechari launched a full-scale assault to prevent it." Princess Alara gently squeezed Tyler's hand, drawing his attention back to her. "The healing is nearly complete. You can break contact now." Cautiously, Tyler withdrew his hand. The princess's vital signs remained stable on the monitors, and her luminescence continued at full strength. The touch had done its work. As Tyler flexed his fingers, he noticed something strange. Faint luminescent patterns, similar to those on Lineran's skin but much fainter, seemed to dance just beneath the surface of his own skin, visible for a moment before fading away. Dr. Chen gasped, pointing at his hand. "Did you see that?" "The symbiotic exchange," Chief Healer Soren said with reverence. "The touch changes both parties." Before anyone could examine the phenomenon further, Lieutenant Reese burst into the chamber. "Mechari forces have breached the main entrance. We have minutes at most." The High Sovereign moved with decisive authority. "Activate the transport pad. We leave immediately." As the sanctuary's crystalline floor reconfigured, revealing an ancient transportation device that seemed to be composed of pure light rather than physical components, Tyler found himself ushered toward the platform alongside the Royal Linerans. "Wait," he protested. "I need to understand what's happening to me. What was that light under my skin?" "All will be explained at the ancestral sanctuary," the High Sovereign promised. "It is the only place where the full knowledge of the precursors is preserved." As they stepped onto the transport pad, Princess Alara took Tyler's hand again, not for healing now, but as a gesture of reassurance. "Trust us, Tyler Grant. What is happening to you is not harmful. It is the awakening of potential that has lain dormant in humanity since your species began." The transport pad hummed with increasing energy, the light beneath their feet growing brighter. Tyler caught a final glimpse of Commander Valen nodding to him in farewell, of Dr. Chen's fascinated scientific gaze, of the human and Lineran defenders preparing to hold back the Mechari forces just long enough for their escape. Then the light enveloped them completely, and Tyler felt his body dissolve into pure energy. The first human to experience the ancient transportation technology of the precursors, being carried to a sanctuary that might hold answers to questions he was only beginning to formulate. As his consciousness stretched across space, one thought remained clear. The universe was far more complex and interconnected than humanity had ever imagined, and somehow, through a quirk of biology or ancient design, he had become a living bridge between civilizations. The transport was unlike anything Tyler had ever experienced. It wasn't the jarring displacement of teleportation as depicted in human fiction, but rather a fluid transition, as if he were being gently disassembled into light and reassembled elsewhere. For a brief, transcendent moment, he felt connected to everything. The crystalline architecture of the medical facility, the biological patterns of the Linerans beside him, even the distant stars scattered across the alien sky. Then reality solidified around him once more, and he found himself standing in a vast chamber unlike any he had seen before. The ancestral sanctuary was neither entirely natural nor clearly artificial, a space that seemed to have grown rather than been built, with soaring arches of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. The floor beneath his feet was smooth but warm, as if the stone itself were alive and breathing. High Sovereign Talon stepped forward, his luminescence interacting with the patterns in the walls, causing cascades of light to flow through the chamber. Welcome to Vale's Heart, the oldest structure on our world. It was here that the precursors first made contact with my ancestors, and here that they left their final messages before departing. Tyler's medical training had taught him to remain calm in extraordinary circumstances, but the events of the past hours had pushed well beyond extraordinary into the realm of the impossible. He fought to maintain his composure as he took in the alien splendor surrounding him. "Where exactly are we?" he asked. "How far from the medical facility?" "Nearly 1,000 kilometers," Princess Alara replied, stepping beside him. Her movements were fluid and graceful, showing no signs of the mortal wounds she had suffered only hours before. "The transport system bypasses conventional space. The Mechari cannot track us here." Tyler noticed that several Lenaran attendants had appeared from adjoining chambers, bowing deeply to the High Sovereign and Princess before casting curious glances at him. "The first human to enter this sacred space. This sanctuary has been hidden from outsiders for millennia," the High Sovereign explained, gesturing for Tyler to follow as he moved deeper into the complex. "Even among my own people, few know of its existence. It is our most closely guarded secret, and the repository of our oldest knowledge." They passed through a series of chambers, each more extraordinary than the last. In one, a pool of liquid crystal reflected not their physical forms but swirling patterns of light that seemed to represent their essential nature. Tyler's reflection appeared as a complex network of golden threads, distinctly different from the flowing river-like patterns that represented the Lenarans. In another chamber, holographic projections, though Tyler suspected they weren't holograms as humans understood them, displayed star systems and planetary bodies, continuously shifting and evolving, as if showing the movement of civilizations across thousands of years in accelerated time. Finally, they entered what appeared to be the heart of the sanctuary, a perfectly circular chamber dominated by a central column of pure light that stretched from floor to ceiling. Around the column, 7 crystalline seats were arranged in a precise circle. "The communion chamber," Princess Alara said, her voice hushed with reverence. "It is here that we commune directly with the knowledge left by the precursors." High Sovereign Talon turned to face Tyler, his expression solemn. "What I am about to show you has never been revealed to any non-Lenaran in our history. The decision to bring you here was not made lightly, but the emergence of the touch of renewal leaves us no choice. You must understand what you are becoming." Tyler felt a chill at those words. "Becoming? I'm not changing into anything. I'm still just a human medic." The faint smile on the High Sovereign's face held both compassion and amusement. "Are you? Look at your hands, Tyler Grant." Tyler raised his hands and was startled to see the same luminescent patterns he had noticed briefly in the medical facility, now more pronounced and persistent. Faint lines of blue-gold light traced patterns just beneath his skin, following what appeared to be his nervous system, but forming complex geometric designs where they intersected. "What's happening to me?" he asked, struggling to keep the alarm from his voice. "The touch of renewal is a catalyst," Princess Alara explained, taking one of his hands in hers. Where their skin made contact, both their luminescent patterns brightened. "It activates dormant genetic potential in both participants. I have been changed by your touch, just as you have been changed by mine. The precursors designed our species to be complementary but distinct," the High Sovereign continued, "each with unique strengths. The Lenarans developed bioluminescence and the ability to perceive energy fields that humans cannot detect. Humans developed remarkable adaptability and creative problem-solving. Together, as the precursors intended, we become something greater than either species alone." Tyler withdrew his hand from the princess's, disturbed by the visible reaction between them. "I never agreed to any of this. I was just trying to save a patient. And that compassion is precisely why the touch manifested in you," the High Sovereign said. "The ability cannot be forced or manufactured. It emerges only in those whose desire to heal outweighs concern for themselves." Before Tyler could respond, a subtle vibration ran through the sanctuary, and the crystalline walls pulsed with urgent patterns. "Proximity alert," Princess Alara translated for Tyler's benefit. Something has penetrated the sanctuary's outer defenses. The High Sovereign's expression hardened. The Mechari have found us sooner than expected. They must have tracked the transport signature. I thought you said they couldn't track us here, Tyler said, tension evident in his voice. They shouldn't be able to, Princess Alara replied. Unless they have already captured and studied someone with the touch, her father finished grimly. We may not be the first instance of the ability's emergence after all. The implication sent a chill through Tyler. If the Mechari had already captured humans who manifested this strange ability, what had they learned? What had they done to those humans? We have little time, the High Sovereign decided. We must proceed with the communion immediately. It is the only way for Tyler to understand what he faces. Princess Alara looked concerned. Father, he is not prepared. The communion is overwhelming even for those raised with knowledge of it. There is no alternative, the High Sovereign insisted. The knowledge must be transferred before the Mechari breach our inner defenses. Tyler looked between them, growing increasingly frustrated. I should have a say in this. What exactly is this communion? What will it do to me? The High Sovereign turned to him, luminescent eyes solemn. The communion is a direct neural interface with the repository of precursor knowledge. It will transfer understanding that would take years to convey through conventional means. It will not change who you are, but it will expand your perception of reality significantly. And the risks? Tyler pressed. Information overload. Princess Alara said bluntly. Your mind might struggle to process the volume of data. There could be temporary disorientation, memory fragmentation, or in the worst case, permanent cognitive damage, the High Sovereign admitted. But without the knowledge, you cannot control the changes already happening within you. The patterns you see beneath your skin will continue to spread and intensify. Without understanding, the process could become problematic. Another vibration ran through the sanctuary, stronger this time. The Mechari were getting closer. Tyler took a deep breath, weighing his limited options. He could refuse the communion and take his chances with his gradually changing biology, or he could accept this alien process and gain understanding of what was happening to him. How does it work? He asked finally. Relief flickered across the faces of both royal Linerans. The High Sovereign gestured to one of the crystalline seats surrounding the column of light. You simply sit and open your mind to the communion. The interface will detect your neural patterns and adjust accordingly. That's it. Just sit and think open thoughts. Princess Alara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Focus on your desire to understand. The interface responds to intention more than technique. With reluctance but growing determination, Tyler approached the indicated seat. As he sat down, the crystalline material adjusted beneath him, molding to his form for perfect comfort. The column of light at the center of the circle seemed to pulse in response to his presence, threads of energy reaching toward him like curious tendrils. I'll remain with you, Princess Alara said, taking the seat beside his. My presence will help stabilize the connection. The High Sovereign remained standing. I must coordinate our defenses against the Mechari. Once the communion begins, you will be vulnerable until it completes. As the Sovereign left the chamber, Tyler turned to Princess Alara. I still don't understand why the Mechari are so determined to stop this. What threat does one human medic with a strange healing ability pose to their entire dominion? The princess's expression was grave. It is not just the healing, Tyler. According to the ancestral texts, the touch of renewal is merely the first manifestation of what happens when our species truly begin to merge their capabilities. The precursors designed us to eventually become a single, unified species, one with the combined strengths of both and the weaknesses of neither. That's not possible, Tyler protested. Species don't just merge. Not naturally, no. But we were engineered with the potential for directed coevolution. The touch is the catalyst that begins the process. The Mechari fear what will follow, abilities that neither humans nor Linerans currently possess, but which will emerge as the merger progresses. Tyler wanted to ask more questions, but the column of light suddenly intensified, bathing the chamber in brilliant radiance. The tendrils of energy that had been reaching toward him made contact with his skin, and the world as he knew it dissolved. The communion was not like viewing information, or even like experiencing a memory. It was total immersion in knowledge so vast and multidimensional that Tyler's human consciousness initially struggled to process it. He experienced the history of the precursors not as a linear narrative, but as a complete gestalt. Their rise as a species, their exploration of the galaxy, their eventual decision to seed compatible life forms across multiple worlds. He understood now that the precursors had faced extinction not through war or natural disaster, but through evolutionary stagnation. They had advanced to the limits of their biological potential and found themselves unable to progress further. Rather than accept this limitation, they had embarked on their greatest project, creating successor species that could one day surpass them. The Linerans had been designed for their sensitivity to energy fields and their natural affinity for technology that operated on principles humans would call psychic or paranormal. Humans had been designed for their adaptability, emotional range, and creative problem-solving. The Mechari had been created for their strategic thinking and disciplined focus. Each species had strengths the others lacked. Each was incomplete by design. The precursors had intended for these species to mature independently, and then, once they reached the stars, to find each other and begin the process of merger, combining their unique traits into increasingly advanced hybrid forms, eventually creating a new species that would surpass even the precursors themselves. But something had gone wrong with the Mechari. Their development had taken an unexpected turn toward dominance rather than cooperation. They had discovered records of the precursors' plan and rejected it, believing that their path of conquest was superior to the intended merger. They had dedicated themselves to preventing the other seeded species from fulfilling the precursors' design. The touch of renewal was just the beginning, the first manifestation of the potential for merger between humans and Linerans. The luminescent patterns appearing beneath Tyler's skin represented the activation of dormant genetic material, the awakening of capabilities that had always been present in human DNA but had remained unexpressed until contact with a compatible Lineran. And there was more, far more than Tyler could fully comprehend in a single communion. Glimpses of abilities that would emerge as the merger progressed, enhanced perception across multiple energy spectrums, direct neural interface with technology, accelerated healing, extended lifespan, and other capabilities that defied easy categorization. The knowledge was overwhelming, threatening to fragment Tyler's sense of self. Just as his consciousness began to splinter under the strain, he felt another presence join the communion. Princess Alara, her mind touching his, helping to stabilize and organize the flood of information. With her assistance, Tyler was able to assimilate the essential knowledge without being overwhelmed by the details. He understood now what he was becoming and why the Mechari were so determined to stop it. The communion began to fade, the transfer of knowledge complete. As Tyler's awareness returned to the physical world, he found himself slumped in the crystalline seat, Princess Alara's hand gripping his tightly. The luminescent patterns beneath both their skin were pulsing in perfect synchronization. "You understand now," she said. It wasn't a question. Tyler nodded slowly, his mind still processing the vast repository of information he had received. "The merger has already begun, hasn't it? Not just in me, but in you too." "Yes." The touch initiated changes in both of us. "You are becoming more Lineran, and I am becoming more human. It is what the precursors intended, the first step toward a new species that combines the best of both." Before Tyler could respond, the sanctuary shuddered violently. The crystalline walls vibrated with urgent patterns, and a deep, resonant alarm began to sound. "The Mechari have breached the inner defenses," Princess Alara said, rising quickly from her seat. "We need to reach the sanctuary's core. It's the only place that remains fully shielded." Tyler stood, surprised at how steady he felt despite the massive influx of information. The communion had changed something fundamental in his neural processing. His mind felt clearer, more organized, capable of handling multiple complex thoughts simultaneously. "Your father," he said. "We need to find him." Princess Alara's expression turned grim. "He would have gone to the projection chamber to coordinate the defense. It's on our way to the core." They left the communion chamber, moving swiftly through corridors that seemed to respond to their presence, lighting the path ahead while darkening behind them. Tyler noticed that he was now perceiving the sanctuary differently. The luminescent patterns in the walls were no longer merely beautiful designs, but a complex information system, constantly updating with the status of various sections of the structure. "I can see the data flows," he said, wonderment in his voice. "The patterns in the walls, they're a real-time security system." "Your perception is already expanding," Princess Alara confirmed. "The changes will continue to accelerate now that you've undergone the communion." They reached the projection chamber to find it in disarray. The holographic displays showed mechary forces converging on the sanctuary from multiple directions. High Sovereign Talon stood at the central console, his luminescence flaring with intensity as he issued commands to defenders they couldn't see. He turned as they entered, relief evident on his face. "The communion was successful, then. I can see the progression in both of you." Tyler looked down at his hands and arms, startled to find that the luminescent patterns had spread further, now extending up to his elbows and becoming more intricate and defined. "How long were we in communion?" he asked, realizing that his sense of time had been distorted. "Nearly an hour," the High Sovereign replied. "Longer than expected. The mechary have used that time well. They've deployed some form of energy-dampening technology that's neutralizing our defensive systems." As if to emphasize his point, the chamber lights flickered, and several of the holographic displays winked out momentarily before re-establishing themselves. "They're targeting our power distribution nodes," Princess Alara observed, studying the remaining displays. "They know exactly where to strike." The High Sovereign's expression darkened. "They have someone guiding them, someone who has been here before." "Another Linaran with the touch?" Tyler asked, recalling the knowledge from the communion that suggested there could be others who had manifested the ability. "No," the High Sovereign said grimly. "A traitor from within our own ranks. Only a member of the royal bloodline would have access to the sanctuary's structural weaknesses." Princess Alara looked stricken. "That's not possible. Our family has always been loyal to the Precursor's vision." "Not all of us, it seems," her father replied. "The security system identified the genetic signature of your cousin, Varen, among the mechary forces." Tyler recalled the information from the communion about the Linaran royal family. Varen was the son of the High Sovereign's brother, a prince who had disappeared during a diplomatic mission to the outer systems nearly a decade ago. He had been presumed dead, his ship lost to an asteroid collision. Varen survived, Princess Alara whispered. "But why would he ally with the mechary?" "Power," the High Sovereign said simply. "The mechary must have promised him dominion over what remains of our people once they've prevented the merger." Another violent tremor shook the sanctuary, more severe than the previous ones. Several crystal panels cracked, and the holographic displays disappeared completely. "We're out of time," the High Sovereign declared. "We must reach the core and activate the final protocol." "Final protocol?" Tyler questioned. "What does that involve?" The exchange of glances between father and daughter did nothing to reassure him. "It is a measure of last resort," the High Sovereign explained as they hurried from the projection chamber toward the heart of the sanctuary. "If the sanctuary falls to enemies of the Precursor's vision, we can trigger a massive energy surge that will eliminate all traces of the knowledge stored here, and anyone within the sanctuary at the time." "A self-destruct mechanism," Tyler translated, his newly enhanced mind quickly grasping the implications. "But that would kill us all." "Not necessarily," Princess Alara interjected. "There is one alternative, but it's never been attempted. It exists only in theoretical form within the ancestral texts." They reached a sealed doorway unlike any Tyler had seen in the sanctuary so far. Rather than crystal, this barrier appeared to be composed of solid light, shifting and flowing like liquid while maintaining an impenetrable barrier. The High Sovereign placed his palm against the door, his luminescence flaring brightly. "I, Talon, High Sovereign of the Linaran Celestial Court, request access to the Precursor Core." The door rippled like water disturbed by a stone, then parted down the middle, revealing a chamber that seemed to exist in a different dimension. The physics within the core were visibly different. Objects floated freely, energy curled and twisted in complex patterns through the air, and at the center hovered a perfect sphere of what appeared to be condensed starlight. "The Heart of Vale," Princess Alara said reverently. the last pure artifact of the precursors. As they entered, the door sealed itself behind them, cutting off the sounds of destruction from the rest of the sanctuary. Inside the core, an unnatural calm prevailed, as if this small pocket of space existed outside the normal flow of time. The High Sovereign approached the floating sphere, his movements careful and precise. The theoretical alternative Princess Alara mentioned would use the heart to accelerate the merger process that has already begun in you both. Tyler's enhanced mind quickly connected the dots. You want to complete the transformation, turn us into whatever hybrid species the precursors designed us to become. Not a hybrid, Princess Alara corrected. Something new. The communion should have shown you that the end result is not simply a combination of human and Linaran, but a transcendence of both. The next evolutionary step the precursors themselves could not take. Tyler felt torn between scientific fascination and primal fear. The communion had indeed shown him glimpses of what this new species might be capable of, but the idea of forcing such a transformation unnaturally, accelerating a process that should take generations, seemed fraught with risk. The process would normally require dozens of humans and Linarans with the touch, working together over many years, the High Sovereign explained. But the heart contains enough energy to catalyze the process in just 2 individuals, if they are already sufficiently compatible. And you believe we are, Tyler said, looking at Princess Alara. The speed and intensity of your initial connection suggests an exceptional compatibility, the High Sovereign confirmed. But the choice must be mutual. Forced transformation would result in failure, possibly catastrophic failure. Another violent tremor reached them even through the shielded walls of the core. The sanctuary was falling. How long do we have? Tyler asked. Minutes at most, the High Sovereign replied. The Mechari forces are nearly at the core's outer chamber. Once they breach that barrier, we will have no choice but to activate the final protocol and destroy the sanctuary. Princess Alara stepped closer to Tyler, her luminescent eyes searching his. I know this is being forced upon you. If there were time, we would explain everything more thoroughly, give you months to consider. But we have only moments to decide. Tyler's mind raced, processing the situation with his newly enhanced cognitive abilities. The communion had shown him that the merger was not just possible but intended, the fulfillment of a plan set in motion by beings far more advanced than either humans or Linarans. It had also shown him the potential benefits, abilities that could save countless lives, extend human consciousness in ways previously unimaginable, open new frontiers of exploration and understanding. But the cost was his humanity, or at least humanity as he had known it. He would become something else, something unprecedented. What about my people, he asked. If we do this, if we become, whatever we become, will it help protect Earth from the Mechari? The High Sovereign's expression was grave but honest. I cannot promise that. What emerges from the transformation would be powerful, but still just 2 individuals against an empire. However, you would serve as living proof that the merger is possible and beneficial, potentially inspiring others to follow the same path. Another tremor, stronger than before. A hairline crack appeared in one wall of the supposedly impervious core chamber. We're out of time, Princess Alara said urgently. We must decide now. Tyler looked at her, really looked at her. In the short time since he had found her dying on the battlefield, some connection had formed between them that transcended normal human or Linaran bonds. He could feel it humming between them like an electric current, growing stronger with each passing moment. Was it just the biological changes triggered by the touch, or was it something more? The communion had suggested that compatibility for the merger wasn't purely physical. It required a deeper resonance, a harmony of consciousness that couldn't be manufactured. In that moment of scrutiny, he saw not an alien princess, not a different species, but a kindred spirit, someone who, despite their different origins, shared something essential with him. The desire to heal, the willingness to sacrifice for others, the courage to face the unknown. If we do this, he said slowly, what happens to you? To your identity? I will still be Alara, she replied. You will still be Tyler. But we will also be more. Our consciousness will expand, not diminish. At least, that is what the ancestral texts predict. The crack in the wall widened, and a high-pitched whine began to emanate from the sphere at the center of the chamber. The heart senses the threat, the High Sovereign said. It's becoming unstable. We must act now or evacuate and trigger the final protocol. Tyler took a deep breath, making the decision that would forever alter the course of his life and potentially the future of both their species. I'm ready, he said, meeting Princess Alera's luminescent gaze with determination. Let's do it. Relief and gratitude washed across her face. She turned to her father. The activation requires royal blood freely given. You know what that means. The High Sovereign nodded solemnly. I have always been prepared for this moment, though I did not expect it to come so soon. He removed an ornate ceremonial dagger from his robes. My life for the future of both our peoples. Tyler stepped forward in alarm. Wait, you're going to sacrifice yourself? There has to be another way. There is not, the High Sovereign said with calm certainty. The heart requires a life of royal blood freely surrendered to power a transformation of this magnitude. It is my duty and my honor to provide it. Before Tyler could protest further, the core chamber shuddered violently. The crack in the wall split wider, and through it they could hear the sounds of weapons fire and alien voices. The Mechari had reached the outer chamber. Take your positions, the High Sovereign instructed, gesturing to two recessed areas on either side of the floating sphere. When the moment comes, you must both place your hands directly into the heart simultaneously. Your intent must be aligned, your purpose unified. Tyler and Princess Alera moved to the indicated positions as the High Sovereign approached the sphere, dagger in hand. Father, Princess Alera said, her voice thick with emotion. There must be another way. The precursors designed these fail-safes with wisdom we cannot fully comprehend, he replied gently. Trust in their vision, as our family has for generations. He turned to Tyler. Protect my daughter, Tyler Grant. And remember that what you become is not just for yourselves, but for all our peoples. With those words, the High Sovereign raised the dagger and plunged it into his own heart. As his luminescence flared brilliantly and then began to fade, he pressed his hand against the floating sphere. The heart pulsed with sudden intensity, absorbing the High Sovereign's fading life energy. His body collapsed to the floor, but something of his essence seemed to remain, swirling within the sphere that now glowed with blinding radiance. Now, Princess Alera cried, tears streaming down her face even as she extended her hands toward the heart. Tyler reached out as well, their fingers touching the surface of the sphere simultaneously. The sensation was like plunging his hands into liquid fire, painful yet exhilarating, destructive yet creative. The heart's energy surged into them both, flowing up their arms and spreading throughout their bodies. The luminescent patterns beneath Tyler's skin flared brilliantly, expanding to cover his entire form. He could see the same happening to Princess Alera across from him. Their eyes met through the blinding light, and in that moment, their consciousness began to merge, not erasing either individual, but creating a shared space between them, a bridge connecting two distinct minds. Through that connection, Tyler felt the princess's grief at her father's sacrifice, her determination to honor his memory, her hope for the future of their peoples. And she, in turn, experienced his doubt, his courage, his compassion that had led him to reach out to a dying alien on a battlefield. The physical changes accelerated as the heart's energy continued to pour into them. Their bodies began to transform at the cellular level, reconfiguring according to the ancient genetic blueprint left by the precursors. It was painful beyond anything Tyler had ever experienced, yet also transcendent, as if he were being unmade and remade simultaneously, dying and being reborn. Outside the core, the sounds of battle grew louder. The Mechari forces, led by the traitorous Prince Varen, were breaking through the final barriers. They would breach the core within moments, but they would be too late. The transformation reached its climax as the heart poured the last of its energy into the two beings who were no longer simply human and Linaran. The sphere that had contained the essence of the precursor's final gift dimmed and crumbled to dust, its purpose fulfilled. Where Tyler Grant and Princess Alera had stood, two new beings now existed, recognizable yet profoundly changed. Their skin glowed with intricate patterns that were neither human nor Linaran, but something entirely new. Their eyes contained galaxies of light. Their minds had expanded beyond the limitations of either species, accessing perceptions and abilities that neither could have achieved alone. And they were connected, not as one consciousness, but as perfectly complementary parts of a greater whole. As the core chamber's door finally gave way and Mechari soldiers poured in, led by a Narration whose luminescence was tinged with sickly green, Prince Varen, the traitor, the newly transformed beings turned to face them with calm certainty. "You are too late, cousin," said the being who had been Princess Alara, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "The merger is complete," added the being who had been Tyler Grant, his voice harmonizing perfectly with hers. "What the precursors intended has begun." Prince Varen's face contorted with rage and fear. "Kill them," he commanded the Mechari soldiers. "Destroy them before they can access their full abilities." The soldiers raised their weapons, energy weapons charging with deadly intent. But before they could fire, the transformed beings extended their hands, and a wave of pure energy radiated outward from their bodies. It wasn't an attack, at least not in the conventional sense. The energy passed through the Mechari soldiers and Prince Varen like a revelation, temporarily connecting their consciousness to the expanded awareness of the transformed beings. In that moment of connection, the Mechari experienced what the merger truly meant. Not domination or extinction, but evolution and transcendence. They saw the Precursor's vision not as a threat, but as a promise, the potential for all seeded species to eventually transcend their limitations and reach new heights of existence. Prince Varen fell to his knees, the carefully constructed justifications for his betrayal crumbling under the weight of this direct experience. The Mechari soldiers lowered their weapons, confusion and wonder replacing their battle rage. "This is what the Dominion feared," the being who had been Tyler said, his voice gentle despite its newfound power. "Not conquest, but understanding. The merger does not erase," continued the being who had been Alara. "It elevates. Each species contributes, none are lost." The transformed beings moved forward together, their steps perfectly synchronized, the energy field around them illuminating the darkened core chamber. "The choice now belongs to all," they said in unison, their voices creating harmonies that seemed to resonate with the structure of reality itself. Continue the path of conflict, or embrace the future the precursors envisioned. We will not force either path, but we will demonstrate what is possible. Outside the sanctuary, the battle had paused as the wave of consciousness-expanding energy washed over the combatants. Human and Narration defenders, Mechari attackers, all experienced the same momentary glimpse of a potential future where their differences became strengths rather than divisions. As the transformed beings emerged from the sanctuary, walking side by side into the light of the alien day, they knew their journey was just beginning. They were the first of what could become a new species, the fulfillment of an ancient design set in motion by beings who had seen potential in diversity that the seeded species themselves had forgotten. They would face resistance. The Mechari Dominion might retreat temporarily, but their fear would not be so easily dispelled. Many humans and Narasians would view the transformation with suspicion or even horror. The path ahead would not be easy. But as they stood beneath the violet sky, the beings who had once been Tyler Grant and Princess Alara faced the future with something that transcended mere optimism, a profound understanding of possibility, a vision of what could be achieved when differences became complementary rather than contradictory. "Where do we begin?" asked the being who had been Tyler, gazing out at the gathered forces, their weapons lowered but their futures uncertain. "By healing," replied the being who had been Alara, reaching for his hand. Where their fingers intertwined, light bloomed, not just the luminescence of their transformed bodies, but something new, something that had never existed before in the long history of either species. The touch that had once closed wounds would now help close the divisions between civilizations, starting with the beings gathered before them. Enemies moments ago, now witnesses to the dawn of a possibility they had never imagined. It was just the beginning. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.